Have we forgotten that wilderness is not a place, but a pattern of soul, where every bird and beast and tree is a soul maker? Have we forgotten that wilderness is not a place, but a moving feast of stars, footprints, scales, and beginnings? Since when do we become afraid of the night and that only the bright stars count, or that our moon is not a moon unless it is full? By whose command were the animals through groping fingers, one for each hand, reduced to the big and the little five? Have we forgotten that every creature is within us, carried by tides of earthly blood, and that we named them? Have we forgotten that wilderness is not a place, but a season? We are in its final hour.
I'm not sure if you know of Stephen Jenkinson. He's a Canadian, he's a social worker and a theologian. You'll like him, John. He describes COVID as a rough God, which I thought was really interesting also in the context of his work. He says he worked in the death trade, he worked in palliative care, and his contention is that we have created a death-denying culture. And so we constantly hold on to this false hope of immortality. And we don't actually face death and the way in which that impoverishes us. He talks about how we live in an age of grievance and we don't deal with grief. And he talks a lot about how if you fully embrace grief and go and experience it, that creates the conditions for a deep appreciation. And I think that, for me, is certainly one of the things that COVID is bringing to us, is that awareness that we might die, or that those that we love might die. And in fact, if we think about it for a minute longer, that we all will eventually die. But it is showing us all these things, that being one of them. I noticed even in myself, and a number of years ago, I was very ill in intensive care, and I noticed when I came home that the whole world had become so exquisitely beautiful. Like I was noticing the edge on every leaf, the tiniest little drop of rain, the grains of soil, and seeing how intensely beautiful it all was, and to the extent that I cried. And I noticed with this virus issue that clearly I kind of returned to that state of awareness, because mostly we're running around being busy, and the fact that we had to stay home and slow down really made me appreciate things differently. Even washing the dishes became a blissful activity.
I think that's a good point to bring this thing to wrap it up, because you're talking about death and what COVID has done for us. And this is really, I'd like Ian, if he could read Deliverance and tell us that story. And I'd really almost think I don't want to say any more. And if there's anything that people can take away from this video, I would want them to be able to exactly echo what you've just said, Lesley. I've just recently had to have heart surgery, and very conscious that, life is fragile and it comes and goes, but the real opportunity inherent in this COVID context is to embrace and to choose life.
Well, thank you. This little recital here will certainly flow from what Lesley has just shared with us, more especially the fact that we're this death-denying species, and how the denial of dying and death actually diminishes us. Why? Because it's so often it's out of dying and that process of death that something else is born. Beauty is born. Compassion is reinforced and reborn. Intelligence comes out of dying as well. There's different ways of understanding the connections. And I think here, if we could just really just recognize the deep continuity of death and dying in our lives, and where on a biological level, that it's essential that we have decomposition. It is just, it's an absolute continuum of all life itself. And that birth, death, rebirth, and the patterns that connect us. Nobody knows for sure what happens to us when we die. But one thing we do know is that memories exist. There are patterns of connections, there are sounds, there are smells, there are the senses of the presence of that individual comes alive in someone else. And so I want to recite this poem to you, which is, in fact, one of the very first poems I ever wrote. And it was the only poem I wrote for years and years. And it kind of reminds me of that sense of that poetry comes from God knows where. And it goes to God knows where. In other words, you don't sit down and just say, right, today I'm going to write a poem. It moves you. It comes through you and it demands to be written. And if you don't, well, you're going to lose it. Well, the background to this is that it was my early days as a doctor at a hospital up on the west coast of South Africa. And I was tending to a man who was dying of bronchial carcinoma. And he was really in his last hours. But I was also, being a general practitioner, I was also involved in antenatal work and obstetrics, okay? And well, I got this call while I was at his bedside, just monitoring his condition. Got a call from one of the nursing sisters to say that this particular patient was ready to deliver. So I left him, went to the delivery room, and saw this lady through the birth of her first child. Out came this child, 10 fingers, 10 toes, all was well. Got it all wrapped up and then sent it off down towards the nursery, which is close by, and the child would then obviously join its mother once mum had been attended to. I then went back to the room where this dying man was lying. And really, within a few minutes of being there, he took his last breath. And as he took his last breath, I heard the sound of this child, this newborn child crying down the corridor. And the link was just absolutely inevitable. You know, I think you'd have to be solidly numb not to make some kind of connection and wonder what on earth this is all about. And so I wrote this poem called Deliverance. Tonight is my night, she said. I can feel it deep inside. And tonight is my night, he said. I can feel there's nowhere to hide. The pain comes and goes, she said. This life deep inside moves about. The pain comes and goes, he said. This life deep inside is out. My breathing is deep, she said. With labor, so much pain. But my breathing is pain, he said. I will not labor again. I'm ripe to deliver, she said. I can feel it all below. I'm ripe to deliver, he said. There's a need deep inside. Let go. Oh, what a song, she said. It is life. The young child cried. Oh, what a song, he said. It is life. And that old body died. That's deliverance. These are the cycles that connect us. That stop us in our tracks. that salute, an enormous and beautiful mystery of life.
Thank you.